Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Barrett, these questions will be asked of you. When Cardinal began setting threshold limits for pharmacies in 2008, the company set family discounts hydrocodone threshold at 27,000 doses a month. In a little over a year, Cardinal adjusted the pharmacy's threshold 14 times, and by August 2009, it was cleared to receive 110,000 hydrocodone pills a month. The pharmacy's threshold for hydrocodone reached a peak of 150,000 dosages a month in January 2010, a level it remained at for a year and a half before Cardinal officials reviewed and reduced it. Mr. Barrett, when a pharmacy goes over its monthly drug threshold, does Cardinal inquire about the reason for the higher drug order?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Today, if an order reaches its threshold, it simply stops. So the process is the threshold that is set, and the threshold is set based on a number of factors. The size of the community it serves, not just the population, but the community it serves, other factors. Does it serve a hospice center or a surgical center, et cetera? If an order reaches that threshold, or that limit, it simply stops.
But in the past, did it question it before today's?
So as I look back at some of the historical documents, I think the thresholds probably should have been set with a different set of eyes. I mentioned this notion of asking different questions, and I think today we probably set those quite differently. But I think at the time of those pharmacies you referred to, thresholds probably should have been adjusted down more quickly.
Did Cardinal make an assessment as to whether that the explanation for increasing the threshold made sense and verified it in any way?
It's hard for me to answer that fully. Again, this is part of the history. I have no reason to question the good intent of those doing that kind of assessment. They were professionals. I think they were looking at the incoming order of prescribing. I think now we know some of that prescribing was driven by some behavior that we would have liked to have caught in the physician world, and today that simply could not happen.
Okay. In family discounts case, the pharmacy gave several explanations as to why it needed higher drug threshold. But in April 2009, the pharmacy said its hydrocodone volumes increased because of the closure of a nearby pharmacy called Save Right Pharmacy. Mr. Barrett, do you know why Save Right closed in 2009?
I'm sorry, Congresswoman, I don't.
Okay. Well, it closed because it was raided by the DEA as part of a crackdown on prescription drug diversion. Save Right, which is located about 30 miles away from Family Discount, closed after it was raided by the DEA, as I just mentioned. And the raid was covered in the local media at the time, but due diligence files Cardinal provided the committee do not indicate that the company knew about this event. Is that something Cardinal should have investigated or known?
I think today, under our procedures in our essentially know your customer model, we try to take into account what factors that we can that are fact. Those weigh into the judgment along with various analytical tools that relate to the nature of the community of practices that a pharmacy serves. So very likely today that would have been a factor that would have been caught in the system.
Okay. Cardinal's policies indicate that as of 2016, two people must now sign off on a decision to raise certain drug threshold levels above 20,000 and above 40,000 a month. Before that policy was adopted, was Cardinal failing to properly vet threshold level adjustments?
I'm not sure, Congresswoman, that I could say that we were failing to reflect that. I think we were using the tools of the moment, and it was probably much more subjective judgment than would happen today. Today, it is a much more rigorous, evidence-based, data-based decision, and it doesn't have the same kind of subjectivity, I think, that was present at that moment.
Okay. Cardinal Health has advised the committee staff that starting in 2012, your corporation implemented stronger compliance systems. However, I would note that in March 2017, the California State Board of Pharmacy filed a complaint against Cardinal's Valencia, California facility for shipping suspicious orders, including hydrocodone, during 2012 to 2015 to Pacific Plaza Pharmacy. I would further note that the conduct of the Cardinal Valencia facility figured in the 2008 $34 million settlement with the Justice Department and DEA. The shipments to Pacific Plaza involved sharp increases in the volume of controlled substances over a period of time. There were also orders of significant amounts of the highest available strength of drug compared to lower strengths, a red flag for illegitimate pharmacy dispensing. I understand Cardinal is contesting the complaint, but Mr. Barrett, shouldn't Cardinal's Health's stronger compliance system have been able to detect and to prevent these transactions?
Congresswoman, if I'm responding, I think, to the case that you refer to, and again, this is important. We shipped to a pharmacy that had an employee that stole a product. We were then criticized for shipping to the pharmacy and not being able to detect that internal theft. Again, I think this in some ways highlights part of the challenge. We ship hospitals and pharmacies all over this country. There are things that may happen inside their watch. If the volumes are not things that would normally hit our thresholds, that are happening at a much lower level, and this can happen, that is something we probably would not detect. And so again, this may or may not be the situation you're referring to. If it is, and I think it may be, that's essentially what the issue is. But for us today, we are driven by strict thresholds, and those are limits on the amount of certain products, 120 categories of drugs that can go to certain pharmacies.
Okay, thank you. I'm out of time.